with that being said, guys, I thought I'd do something in honor of Juneteenth but kind of flip it. Do something that revolves one of my favorite comic characters of Marvel, one of my top 10 favorite Marvel characters of all time. And who is that character? Luke Cage. I thought I'd do a list or do something in terms for Luke to kind of to celebrate Juneteenth in a sense. And I decided to do my favorite moments in Luke Cage's history. So I decided to give I believe eight moments that spans this character nearly 50 years. I mean, Luke Cage has been around for about 50 years now. Yeah, around 50 years now. He debuted in 1972. So yeah, that's 50 years. And that's really cool. And the evolution of this character has been very cool for me as a fan and as someone who's read this character for a long time. I always thought Luke was cool. You know, I always called Luke Cage the people's heroes because he didn't wear a mask. He didn't hide his face. You know, nobody could really hurt him very much. So yeah, I thought I'd give like 8 moments or so, my favorite moments in his history. So let's kick it off, shall we? And number 1 we start off with is none other than his debut. Luke Cage Hero for Hire #1 came out in 1972. This was the debut of Luke Cage, or Carl Lucas. That's his real name. And we get an indication of who Luke Cage was. You know, he was a part of a gang growing up in New York, in Harlem. He was betrayed by his best friend. Why? Because over a woman that loved him. Willis Stryker, aka, and who basically set Luke Cage up. Basically put about 100 kilos of smack in his apartment. He called the cops. They bust in. They see the drugs, and he gets sent away. In jail, we all know what happened to him. He basically, to get sentenced, taken off of his time, he volunteered for an experiment that was actually funded by Tony Stark, which a lot of people don't know in terms of Dr. Brumstein. But of course, the warden that was in there gave Luke Cage a hard time. Always was, bullying him. And when he found out if Luke did this experiment, it would knock off time off his sentence, he was like, that ain't happening. And he basically malfunctioned the experiment. But we all know what happened. In the process, the experiment didn't really go that wrong. It kind of went right. Luke gains super abilities, super strength, agility, durability, things like that. But more importantly, his skin was unbreakable. Luke Cage breaks out of jail, and then the story goes from there. That's pretty much his debut. And I love it. If it wasn't for the debut, we would never have gotten Luke Cage. So that's always going to be a plus for me. Number 2 on the list, we go to probably the greatest bromance, one of the greatest bromances in comics. His partnership and bromance, his brotherhood with Danny Rand, aka Iron Fist. He may not be the Iron Fist now, but Danny, he's gonna get that mantle back. The Swordmaster is not gonna have that mantle for long before it goes back to Danny. In my opinion, it should go back to Danny. The only way Danny should lose the mantle of Iron Fist is if he dies for good, and that's not happening. But the bromance between, what a polar opposite they were when they debuted. You got one guy, not just their color, white and black. No, it's the whole concept. You got Luke Cage, who comes from the streets, comes from Harlem and things like that. Well, Danny comes from money. He's privileged in a sense, but you're seeing the dynamics and seeing that Danny doesn't really care too much about his money in that way, and he uses his money differently than a lot of people. You see that. It was kind of like the same thing. It was kind of like what DC did with Green Arrow and Green Lantern, because both of their books weren't doing very well, so they put them together. Same thing with Marvel. Both Luke Cage and Iron Fist's books weren't doing that well, put them together, and a huge run lasted. And it's always been cool. I love their friendship. It's one of my favorite brother romances in comics. Anytime I see Luke Cage and Iron Fist together, I'm like, yeah, all right, we got Danny, and they work so well together. They work so well off each other, and I really, really enjoy that. So yes, the bromance between Luke and Danny Iron Fist is great. Number 3 on the list. This is probably the funniest, but there's a reason for it. But Luke versus Dr. Doom. That's right, Luke Cage versus Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom is my favorite villain of all time, and he is one of the big bads of Marvel. But I'll let you know right now, one time Luke went at it with Dr. Doom. And you want to know why? All for a measly $200. I'm not joking. This happened in Luke Cage Hero for Hire number 9, I believe. Correct me on that. I think it's number 9. And Luke, through a middleman, Victor Von Doom hired Luke Cage, but didn't pay him. And Luke basically traveled all the way to Latveria and squared up against Dr. Doom. Was like, where's my money? Like, it's the funniest panel that you'll ever see, but it still was just like, yo, Luke was serious about his money. Now you gotta remember, when he was a hero for hire, but there were times he didn't take people's money, especially like, the downtrodden, those who work hard for their money. But if somebody like Doom, he was like, yo, give me my money, like, and it was $200. But it's the funniest panel. If you ever read Heroes for Hire, Luke Cage Hero for Hire number 9, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's the funniest thing. Made me laugh. Still to this day, anytime I'll go back and read it, it's the funniest thing. It still makes me laugh. And when I read it for the first time, I was a kid. I was like 12 or 12 or 10 when I read it, and it cracked me up then, and it cracks me up now. So yeah, it's good times. 4 on the list. Number 4. We're on number 4. I'm sorry, guys. That was the funniest thing. Yeah. Number 4. Luke becoming an Avenger. This is a moment for me that I will always treasure. At the time of Avengers Disassembled, Marvel, which probably Avengers Disassembled was probably one of Bendis's best work. I will definitely put that up there. This was at a time when pretty much Wanda went crazy, and what she did to the Avengers, her second family, and it was terrible. But in the meantime, Marvel started showcasing that they were building back up Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and they showed the silhouette of who was going to be on this new Avengers team, and one of those characters was Luke Cage. Brian Michael Bendis brought Luke Cage on this team, and I loved it. I loved it because Luke brought a different dynamic to this version, this Avengers team. He was like, yeah, we're gonna go places that the Avengers don't go, and they started doing that in the couple of the issues. But in the meantime, I love that Luke basically, was basically saying like, yeah, I was always kind of on my own, but it'd be great to have my daughter, which he was having at the time, tell her that her daddy was an Avenger. And Luke went on to do a lot as an Avenger, so much that he learned under Steve, to the point where he took over leadership of the new Avengers, especially during the time of the Civil War after, and they were kind of underground. Yeah, it was great. So I loved Luke as an Avenger. It was perfect. So yeah, Luke Cage as an Avenger. Number 5, of course, I should have put this number 4, but number 5 is Luke, our father. I love characters who have families. I love characters especially heroes who fight for more than just, the thrill. And Luke and Jessica Jones had a love child. They got busy one night and she ended up getting pregnant. And of course later on it wasn't just a one night thing. They became a couple after a while. But Luke is baby Danielle's dad, Danielle Cage. She's named after her uncle, Danny. And I love that they have showcased Danielle and how much Luke loves his daughter, and showcased Danielle growing up throughout the stages of her appearances in comics, and then even Marvel showcasing at a time, that in some age or even though it's an alternate version of somewhere, down, she's going to become a hero like her parents. She's not only just going to become a hero, she's going to become one of the greatest symbols, Captain America, where she don't really need the shield. She is the fucking shield. So I really like that. But I love Danny I love Luke as a father. I love that as someone who wants children. And sometimes I would say, I'll be honest with you guys, I see a lot of my cousins and they have children. I'm a little envious of it because I'm one of the oldest cousins, and I see that and I'm like, kind of wish that was me. So don't get me wrong, I love that, but it's still a point. Your boy wants to be a dad, and when I see Luke as a dad, I'm just like, God, that's great. I love that. Such a, once again, evolution of that character. So Luke as a dad is number 5. It should have been number 4, but I just put it there. Number 6 on the list, Luke and Jessica get married. And what I love about this is that they really made a big deal out of this. That's what I love about it. It was a part of an Avengers special, the marriage of Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. Now Jessica Jones's name is Jessica Jones -Cage. So she still has her name Jones. She just hyphenated it. I like the dynamics of Luke and Jessica. They feed off each other well. As she won't put up too much with Luke's kind of BS at times, and he won't put up with Jessica's BS at times, but they just meld together. And I like that. They're probably one of my favorite interracial couples in comics. Really like that. But they really made a big deal out of it. They did it. They really did. All the Avengers were there at the wedding, at the time, and it was just, they took a picture of them all together. It was great. It was special, again. And I love that they're still married. They haven't been divorced. They've been through some stints where they separated a couple of times, but it was never stated that they were divorced. And I like that they haven't done that. I get so tired when I hear, couples breaking up, or if they're married, they got annulled or so. Yeah, Marvel, I'm talking to you. If you didn't want Storm and T'Challa to be married, you shouldn't have done it. It's just the way I look at it. But y'all don't pull that crap with Reed and Sue. You never really pull that crap with them, so why do it with other characters? So I'm glad they haven't done it with Luke and Jessica. So yeah, Luke Cage and Luke getting married, becoming a married man. He's off the table. Number 7, yeah, right, number 7 on the list. Another evolution of this character. Luke Cage becoming mayor of New York City. Currently now, Luke Cage is the mayor of New York City in the comics. He is the mayor. He is absolutely the mayor. This happened during Dark Reign, where the heroes were really trying to figure out a way to stop, Wilson Fisk, because remember, Wilson was still the mayor at that time, and he had basically outlawed heroes in New York City, which was dumb. It was stupid. He only did it for his own reasons. But at one point it was going to be Tony to run for mayor, but they were like, the heroes were like, no, that's not going to work. No, we can't have you. And so I forget who it was, but I think it was Steve or so that basically said, how about you, Luke? And Luke Cage went out and started pretty much doing a routine of promoting himself, and the first thing he did was he kept it real. He was like, look, you know, Wilson Fisk is the bad guy. Like, why did y'all hire this guy? More importantly, he's like, look, I know there are a lot of my friends that are in the superhero community, they wear masks. There's a reason for that. He broke it down. He wasn't sugarcoating it. He was like, look, they wear it because they have people they love that they are protecting. He says, I never wear a mask. And it wasn't that I didn't, you know, basically I'm saying, he wasn't knocking the other heroes. He was just like, I didn't wear a mask because nobody could really hurt me. Nobody can really hurt me. I'm unbreakable. But he won. He actually won the election. And Luke has been mayor for some time now. I mean, he was a big pinnacle, a part of the gang war that happened. And you know, he went under a mask. The ironic thing about that, he wore a mask to help the streets of the city of New York, and as a hero, and he teamed up with a lot of his friends to help. It was so much fun. But once again, I've said it before, it's like the evolution of this character is just perfect and near great. You see him go from being this just kind of the stereotypical black man hero to moving to being an Avenger, to being a father, to being this and that, and then of course now he's a mayor. So it's really cool to see. Do I miss him being out on teams? Yes, you know, but it's cool to see him as the mayor of the New York City of the Marvel Universe. So I like that. I like it a lot. And number 8 on the list, the last one, I could not forget this, is Mike Colter casted as Luke Cage. Mike Colter casted as Luke Cage was one of the greatest things to see, because I've always wanted to see Luke Cage live action, and I would see all these countless, you know, fan films of guys playing Luke Cage, and yeah, they got the size and mask of Luke, but you wanted to see more than that. And then we get the Luke Cage series that started on Netflix and everything. Like, you still can watch it. It's on Disney Plus, and it was such a good ride. It was real. I was glad they didn't go kind of I'm glad they went more modern with him, and they still kept it very modern the way Brian Michael Bendis was writing him and things like that. Mike Colter really embodied what I wanted from Luke Cage. You know, he's a man of mystery, but also he's an elegant man. He knows the streets. You know, he's street smart, but he's also intelligent. I didn't want just a knockoff black exploitation character. I'm not saying that he's not, but I wasn't looking for that. You know, I didn't mind if he, you know, spoke a little jive, but you know, it's just like we should be kind of a little bit not moving away from that. He can be intelligent and still to this day, I go back and watch that series, or I watch some of my favorite scenes. I love some of the scenes like one of my favorite scenes is from the first season is where Luke, they come after the people he lives with, the Asian couple, and tell them, like, they were like, give us the money. And Luke comes in there and is like, you're being disrespectful. That ain't necessary. And the one guy comes up, tries to punch him, and you just see his whole wrist shred. And then he just says, come, and he flips him out. And then, you know, he grabs the gun goes off, and he just opens his hand like, yeah, what? I love that stuff. It's some of the fun stuff I love about Mike Colter as Luke Cage. I would love to see him come back in that role, you know, because I know his show Evil is ending, but I would love to see Mike Colter come back as Luke for the MCU. I think it would be great to see him back and things like that. And look, him saying "Sweet Christmas," it's Luke's calling card. But yes, it worked. Even in the series, it worked, and I loved it. The show has so much to gain, as well as so much that it was trying to get people awareness of. Like, the reason for why Luke Cage wore hoodies all the time you should have understood why, and it worked. So yeah, Mike Colter as live action Luke Cage is great. I love it. I so love it. Well, guys, there you have it. Those are some of my favorite moments or things that happened for Luke Cage over his 50-year history. I'm hoping to see more of his history. He keeps going on in history till he gets to 60 years and 70 years. And I want him to get up to 100 years. You know, it's just the way it is. You know, he is one of my favorite Marvel characters of all time. I love that character. I thank my dad for getting me into the character because, you know, my dad used to read it when he was a kid, and that was a character that he knew as a kid. And you know, Black Panther, of course, and he would always tell me, like, you know, he saw himself in those characters because at the time, growing up in the 60s and 70s, yeah, that was, you know, it wasn't a lot of characters of color at that point, especially in comics. So yeah, it was great to see, and Luke Cage is still one of my favorites. Sweet Christmas, yeah. But what are some of your favorite moments of Luke Cage? I mean, I have more. I mean, like when he beat the crap out of Purple Man, you know, that was fun. I love anytime he beats the crap out of Purple Man. I love it. Like, it was during. I'll say this. This is let's okay. I'll give you this. Here's another moment. Let's throw another moment in there. Another moment. Him beating up Purple Man. This happened during the breakout on the raft, and Luke Cage and Purple Man thought, oh, I can control Luke Cage, and Luke Cage was like, bitch, please, you ain't controlling me. I'm like immune to you now. And he just see him beat the crap out of Luke Cage. So it's the funniest thing, and it's not the first time. He's done it before. He's done it again when Luke was leading the Thunderbolts, his version of Thunder. There's a lot of times, so it's really funny. So that's an honorable mention as well. But outside of that, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, happy Juneteenth, and I'll see you guys next time. Deuces.